When the wheels came off Welsh Rugby in the early 80s, the WRU showed just how amateurish its management of the game really was. Its typical knee-jerk reaction was to sack the coach. John Lloyd was the first to go, and he'd be the first of many. The players' ideas were simply ignored.
Instead of perhaps sitting back and looking at the whole structure, they just made changes within the senior setup. The coaches went, players were perhaps discarded, a new setup was brought in, and I think there were a lot of disgruntled and frustrated and unhappy players amongst the current setup.
As the losses continued to pile up right into the 90s, the WRU should have reformed everything, including itself. But it would largely be the WRU and its penchant for that peculiar Welsh disease, the committee, that would ensure 2 decades of playing catch-up rugby. The managers of the game buried their heads in the sand and simply hoped for another golden era to come back. Now things are in such a state that it seems uncertain whether rugby really is the Welsh national sport anymore.
Beat the Springboks on that historic day, and then they came with forklift trucks and took the pitch away.
But the bit that Max leaves out is that Welsh rugby has been a disgrace for over the last 20 years. Each new crop of talent has been cut down by a collection of amateurish WRU clots, stone deaf to the need to shake up the whole Welsh game.
There was concern, yes, that perhaps the people who were making the decisions were not necessarily those who understood exactly what was wrong with our game. I think the players were in a very good position to have given their own views and opinions on the state of Welsh rugby.
On behalf of the players, fly half Jonathan Davis asked the WRU to be given a chance to present his ideas to the annual meeting. He was told to get lost. And he did. Off to rugby league.
We had this huge drain of players of massive talent, people like Jonathan Davis, going north because nobody listened to them really, and they let them disappear. They let them go without thinking, well, yeah, they do have a point. How can we nurture these people?
Then Wales was ejected from the 1991 World Cup in the first round by Western Samoa. A pattern of despair was emerging among the players. Then the WRU put together another committee to make recommendations for change, which in turn were kicked into the long grass. Further disasters on the field were to be followed by sackings on the coaching side. Reform of this sick monster, the WRU itself, however, was well off limits.
We have a strange, damaging inclination that if it goes wrong, or sack the coach and start from scratch again. Well, how many times can you start from scratch? You know, take an example out of Welsh football. It would have been very, very easy for the Welsh FA to sack Mark Hughes having lost 13 on the trot, or 12 on the trot, or something like that. But they didn't, and all credit to them. They were patient with him. They let him develop his ideas.
I mean, we saw a succession of coaches going one after another when actually the problems were much more deep-rooted than that. And before you look to grabbing your messiah from whatever part of the Southern Hemisphere or whatever, you know, you make sure the structure itself is strong as well. You know, it's not just a quick paint job.
When rugby became professional in 1995, the Welsh team, still floundering, would have to cope with a whole new era. It was then that WRU Secretary Glanmor Griffiths had a dream. Build a stadium, and they will come. How could you go wrong building a Welsh rugby cathedral on such sacred soil? Well, you could start by ignoring investing in the lifeblood of the game, young people, just at a time when the marketing of football had gone into the stratosphere. Football in the 90s really did win over the hearts of a much wider public. The World Cup, European Cups, UEFA Cups, FA Cups, Premier League clashes, all made football the popular choice.
The mass coverage that we get of football compared to rugby on our screens virtually every day you know, a high percentage of people have got Sky TV and their kids are tuning into sort of Monday night football, Sunday afternoon football, Wednesday night football. They're more likely to want to be, as I say, a Ryan Giggs than they are a Stephen Jones.
One major boost has been the success of the Welsh football team. Under manager Mark Hughes, it has recently managed to win and win consistently against serious opposition. The audience here is very young and very loud. Football crowds are a million miles away from the dispirited, die-hard fans who turn up to watch yet another rugby hammering at the Millennium Stadium.
At the Millennium Stadium, tremendous result, 72,500.
But there are plenty of young rugby players out there right now. Some 44,000 schoolboys played rugby in Wales last year, and the Welsh junior sides are up there with the best in the world. The fact that the national side is so bad points a finger at the WRU for putting up a stadium, but not spending enough money where it's really needed.
I have always believed that we need to look after our young players. We can't just allow the natural ability we have just to come through, allow them to just come onto the senior stage and expect them to produce the goods. That needs to be nurtured, and hopefully that will ensure success in the future.
Piecemeal youth initiatives run by Robert Jones and others have sprung up in the professional era. But they lack the money to bridge the talent gap on their own.
As a teacher, you know, we can't be doom and gloom. If this side is not good enough, we'll work hard to develop the next side and the next. And to every trough, you know, there's got to be a peak, and we have to be able to believe we'll come back as a nation and compete at the highest level again. And I think we should back these players and give them the support they need to develop and give them the opportunity to play.
Won't another wooden spoon or two make the game even more repellent to any young, sane person? Only masochists need join. At the last World Cup, there was Rugby Mad Max, belting it out with the ceremony once again. And Wales got stuffed by Western Samoa once again. The WRU did bring in a foreign coach for the first time, Graham Henry from New Zealand, for a rumoured price tag of $1 million.
It's a marvellous opportunity. I feel that I'm very privileged to be asked to do the job. It's a rugby nation that's steeped in tradition in rugby, and I feel very privileged that they asked me to come over and coach their national team.
In his 4 years in the job, Henry put Wales back on track with a respectable tally of wins and briefly became known as the Great Redeemer. But this too couldn't last. Henry was drawn into the murky committee politics of the WRU and sank like a stone. Like a long list of coaches before, he too was given the boot. But if Glanmore Griffiths could see off one Australasian, he couldn't see off two. He brought in the highly experienced rugby manager David Moffatt as a new chief executive in the autumn of last year. But within 6 months, Glanmore Griffiths walked. He takes credit for the stadium, but its £49 million in unpaid debts and greater popularity with footballers isn't mentioned in polite rugby circles.
He gave us the stadium on the cheap, and that was a big achievement. You can't take that away from him. But for many people, he came to symbolise the worst aspect of Welsh committee culture, the blazer. To be fair to him, he brought the people in who were making its future. He brought Moffatt here. And I think his biggest contribution to the game will be seen in years to come. We choosing to go when he did, because he ends one era, but he did help set up the next one.
It's all about the good of Welsh sport and the good of Welsh rugby, and we have to give David Moffatt more support than he seems to be getting at the moment. And I just think that if we don't, he may well walk away and we will have missed a golden opportunity to revolutionise the way rugby as a sport and as a business is run in this country.